can you show up as someone without expectations at all of what something could be, and show up for this person as just you genuinely wanting to get to know them as a friend? Right? Now, I understand as a date, like, men are usually paying for a bill. And, now I'm going to hear these conversations of, hey, like, who should we split the bill if we're just friends? Like, no, I think a man should still court a woman, but I think there should be a friendship established, like a real genuine friendship established. Like, I don't know if you have a friend where you like every time I'm with this person, or like, this is the only person or only two people that can make me laugh like this.
Welcome to the Manders Mindset Podcast. Here you'll find both monologue and interviews of entrepreneurs, coaches, healers, and a variety of other people, where your host Amanda Russo will discuss her own mindset and perspective, and her guest's mindset and perspective on the world around us. Manders and her guests will help explain to you how shifting your mindset will shift your life.
Whoa, I'm not peeing on myself.
Oh,
you pee on yourself.
I don't need to pee. I'm holding it. All right, let's go before you really need to pee on yourself, and we have to cut this short.
We don't need to cut this short. We got all the time in the world.
I don't. I got things to do.
No, you fucking don't.
Yeah, I do. I got a lot of things to do.
No, you fucking don't.
Okay.
I got a lot of fucking shit to say. This has been a long time coming.
All right, well, let's say it. Let's say it.
You yourself said, when I said to you, you got to be a guest on my podcast, you said, not till you get to at least 8 episodes. Okay. I've been prepping for this. So
let's test your skills. Let's test your skills out.
Don't even start with me.
We're going to test those skills out today. We're going to see how good you are.
Yeah, we're going to test them. We're going to fucking test them.
All right, let's go.
Okay. You're killing me over here. I am so excited to be here for episode 50 with a very special guest, my dear friend, Bret Lockett, who honestly I admire so much. Bret Lockett is an international relationship and transformational expert, speaker, and former NFL player, passionately dedicated to empowering individuals through deep insights and transformative guidance. With expertise rooted in intricate dynamics of love, metaphysics, and the human psyche, Bret has become a sought-after love coach and authority for both men and women. Through his extraordinary journey of self-discovery and unwavering dedication, he has mastered the art of helping people cultivate fulfilling and harmonious relationships while illuminating their souls. Bret's presence is an invitation for individuals to embrace their innate essence, trust their intuition, and unlock their true potential in love and relationships. His deep understanding, captivating speaking style, and transformative approach make him a catalyst for powerful shifts within individuals and organizations alike. Bret's mission is to guide people towards the depths of their souls and facilitate intimacy and human connections. And I am here with the lovely Bret Lockett. Bret, how you doing today?
After that introduction, I don't even know who you're talking about because who wrote that thing? Because I definitely did not write that. I'm going to have to call my publicist and give him a kudos for making me sound so awesome. That's great. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to have you. But this has been a long time coming. We are back.
We made it back.
Bret is in the middle of bumfuck nowhere. So yeah, he's got fake ass Wi-Fi. So we're making this work.
I think it was my computer.
Where the hell are you? Is Honduras where you're at right now?
I'm in Guatemala.
Okay, you're back there.
De Flores, which is Flores Island, and it's beautiful down here. It's incredible.
Okay.
Yeah, highly recommend it. Add it to your travel list.
Noted. Will do. So, if I remember correctly, before we were touching upon how you met Curtis. He was throwing parties for the Patriots. He had a liquor store business, I believe you said.
Liquor company, yeah.
Liquor company. And from from there? Where'd you transpire from there? What
In terms of
happened?
us just becoming friends.
Yeah. And where did spirituality come into the mix for you? Was it
Well, Curtis had
Was
been
it
doing
not
his
Curtis?
thing for like, almost 10 years before that. So, he had already gone through kind of a process of understanding why he was going through certain things. And, some people introduced him to some things that I learned very later when he introduced them to me. So, just like anybody else, you learn things from people who've already been through experiences. And, he was able to show me some things that I really started to take to, and I'm not one of those people that like believe everything. Seeing for me is believing. But I started seeing and I was like, okay, this is real, and I started going through experiences and having certain things happen to me that were just out of the norm that I would never notice, and I think a lot of it has to do with you raising your consciousness, because at a specific level, you're not going to be able to realize certain things about life. It's the same way children don't understand certain things, or maybe children are able to see certain things, right? You have to be open to specific frequencies and being able to tap into certain levels of the universe.
Is there anything that helped you be more open?
I think it was a process of just seeking, one, but two, wanting answers. Three, there were some psychedelic experiences involved, like DMT and mushrooms and, bufo. And I've done my fair share of stuff, nothing to where like it was substantial, like every other weekend or microdosing or stuff like that, but just very controlled scenarios and spiritual ceremonies that awakened me to a higher or a greater essence of life, and connecting me with what, I think we call God, but, what I call God is the existence of all. And so, I've had my experiences where I felt reborn, or I felt like I was reborn, and understanding why I was created, and almost like being born and then brought back into creation. Like I've had experiences like that. So like, I think everything is a step toward, the destination. And so it's not one instance, but I think it's a culmination of everything that has gotten me to this point.
Okay. No, I get that. So you played for the Patriots for 3 years, correct? And
Yep.
then where did you transition from there?
So I ended up not re-signing with the Patriots after my third year because I'd been injured 3 years in a row, and the Patriots just decided to move into a different direction. I tore my pec, and then I tore my groin twice, and so I was always injured on the team. And so that third year he let me go, or after third year he let me go, and then I ended up not being able to get picked back up because I had just this injury history and I hadn't seen the field really in almost 3 years. So I ended up playing in a league called the UFL, which stood for the United Football League at the time. Played there for 4 games. We were supposed to play for 8, but the league ended up filing for bankruptcy. So, that was unfortunate, as well as a bunch of guys didn't.
Are you still there? Bret.
Listen, I told you, I'm out here. What it is. Hopefully, you got a good editor, though. You'll be good.
When I told you I was going to have my first heart attack at 27, I'm not kidding.
Hold on, I need to make sure we're good here. We light it up quick.
Oh boy, don't do something. You're going to do something and then you're going to go blowy again and I'm going to sit here like this.
Just Sage, or Palo Santos, excuse me. Yeah, I'm just going to clear the energy here. Okay, let's bring it back. Okay, let's go. Deep breath. There you go. Yeah, let it out. Oh my gosh.
So, where the hell were we? You left Patriots because you kept getting injured. And
Yep.
then
And then I signed with the UFL, and which it stood for the United Football League. They filed for bankruptcy. And it gave me my opportunity to get back in the NFL at the time. So I think a big part of, having to take a step back for a lot of people is that fear of, damn, I got to redo something that I've already done. And life sometimes forces you to take steps back so that you can realize, one, how far you came, but two, what you need to become to move forward. And a big part of that journey, because, I was making way less than I would have made playing in the NFL. I was also playing at a level that I knew I was better than, but I still had to perform, and I had to have the right attitude, and I had to go in and compete against guys that weren't as good of a player as me. But at the end of the day, it's what I had to do to get back into the NFL. And so I went through that period. It was about 4 months, well, actually a month playing. And then I got all the way, that was like October, and then November. And so, October, November, and December, I didn't get picked back up for the NFL. And then right at the top of the year, like January 1st or 2nd, I signed with the New York Jets. And that's where I ended up, playing for the next like 8 months. And then I got let go after our second preseason game. So I was like August by the Jets. And then after that, it was like, time to figure it out. And that was a big step because I had to figure out if I still wanted to even play football, and that every football player goes through that. Like, do I still want to go through this physical and mental battle? Do I have the resources to be able to do so? There's a whole lot there,
And what made you come to the determination that you didn't want to play football anymore?
For me, I think it was about proving that I could do it, that I could play at that level. And I think a large part of it, is like not understanding that there's other opportunities in life to be able to, live the life that we want, because football is not easy by any means. It's physically tough. I'd been through 3 surgeries at that time, by that time. And, I was like, do I want to keep putting my body on the line? Is it worth it? And, the answer at that time was no. It was like, no, it wasn't. And so I was like, all right, time to move on, time to move forward. Let's figure out what the next thing was. And that was like one of the hardest things I ever had to do, was figure out like, what is the next thing for me? And then deal with the trauma of being hurt. Because when something doesn't go the way you expected it to go, and we can talk about expectations and how they're really just a fast way to finding unhappiness. But I had this expectation of, I wanted this to be this way, and it wasn't. And so even though I still was moving on to the next thing, I was still holding on to baggage, emotional baggage and physical baggage of it not getting to the level that I thought I wanted to get to, And so I really had to move through that. And, I honestly didn't move through that situation of just being let go and not having the NFL that I wanted up until like 2 years ago, maybe like a year ago, actually. And that was
Really?
My last year was 2013. So it's been over 10 years.
How'd you let go of that?
Breath work. Lots of breath work.
Really?
Lots of breath work and other experiences. Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
It's understanding why. Like I said, remember when you asked me like, hey, what do you mean, that you can get very far, but you may not get to your dream, right? My dream was to play in the NFL, but, when I got to the NFL, my dream was to be one of the top NFL players. I didn't get there. Right. So, and win a Super Bowl. I didn't win a Super Bowl. We lost. So I fell short of that goal, but I still exceeded all of my expectations. But that expectation of, this is what I want to do, and I didn't get there. There was a certain level of, I wasn't good enough that played out in other parts of my life after football. And the same stuff that played out when I was a kid, I'm not good enough. It all correlates. It all meshes together from childhood to the rest of your life. It all pulls at strings of your inner being from various parts of your life. And that's like when you look at doing deep metaphysical work, you're not working on just your physical body. Because remember, I told you you have your soul. So you're working at a soul level on how to, one, realign yourself with what your soul is here to do. But you're also looking at where are you storing these emotions or these instances or these situations, these moments in time that you've taken and placed in a certain part of your body and you're holding on to it. Like, where are you where are you holding on to that, and how can we move through that? And what do we need to change mentally so that you don't go back there? Because you can move through something and mentally still go back to that same place. Right. And then how can we get you to understand something at a higher level to where even though you may want to go back there, or your body may want to take you back there because the body, again, feels the physical part of it, you can see above that and understand that that's just a part of the body. Right. We all get sleepy. We all get hungry. We all get horny. Right. Like it all happens. Right. It's like, but how do you understand that at a higher level? Right. To
So
where you're not.
How do you understand that at a higher level?
By going through your subconscious and your conscious mind and understanding that everything is a part of the spiritual realm before it's physical. And when you understand that and you start to journey into doing the work on yourself and understanding, because I can give you how I did something, right? How I got to certain places in my journey. Is that going to be the same way that you get there or anybody else listening to this podcast? I don't know. Could it possibly help push you in a certain direction? I'm sure it could. But is it going to be the exact same way? You're like, oh, Bret did it that way. Well, I'm going to do it this way and I'm going to get the same result. You may be like, well, Bret did breath work and he said that he was able to get over his trauma with football. So I'm going to do breath work. You may do breath work. And you're like, this shit sucks. I don't want to do breath work. Right? That just could be you. Right? And you're like, well, I'm going to do it this way. There's no specific way to be able to have a spiritual awakening. There's no specific way, and you can't force it. That's the thing. Like people think, well, like if I just do this and I meditate long enough, I'm going to be in line with the divine. I'm going to be able to tap into divine source. Like it doesn't work that way. You can meditate all you want. You can do all the yoga you want. You can do all the shrooms you want. That is not going to help you reach a higher level of enlightenment in a shorter period of time. It's just not. Everybody has their own specific route and their own specific timing, which I said you're exactly where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there.
No, I get that. And I really like how you mentioned that basically there's no saying it would work for somebody else, even if they follow the same footsteps, because we're all different.
We're all different. And that's again, the I don't see problems because everything is a part of evolution, right? I just see things for what they are and I understand them, right? I try to reach an understanding, but that's why I say there's no one way to do anything. And nobody knows anything more than most people, right? Like, yeah, you may have a doctor, but how many doctors have told people terrible advice? How many doctors have lost their license for not practicing the right things they should practice, right? There's bad people in every industry, right? When I say bad, I mean that don't qualify to the advice that or that are not qualified based on the advice they're giving or are giving the wrong advice. How many times have, you heard someone say, hey, you should eat these things. And then 5 years later, that thing that they said you should eat comes out and you're like, nope, shouldn't eat it. I just saw something where it was like, Gatorade's getting banned in California. Oreos are getting banned in California. Like there's like a whole list of things that are getting banned based on certain chemicals in them that cause cancer, right? Who knew Gatorade was causing people cancer? People have been drinking it since the 1990s, right? So
wow.
we constantly do this where we say, well, this is the way. This is how you do it. This is what's good for you. And then 10 years, 5 years, 2 months, no, it's not. Okay, so we don't really know anything. Everybody's still trying to figure it out. There's no true path. The path for you is the path of you figuring it out and you figuring out how you want to experience life on this planet. That's what you're here to do. Everybody's going to have their own experience. You need to figure out how do I want to experience this life? Do I want to experience pure bliss? Do I want to experience some drama? Do I want to experience some excitement? Right? Do I want to experience a lot of money? Like, what kind of experience do you want to have on this place? Because you're going to leave eventually. And when you do leave, you're going to go somewhere else. But while you're here, this is the lesson. This is the class, right? And you gotta figure out that for you, because everybody's experience is going to be different. Because everybody's dealing with different karma. Everybody's dealing with something that they've come into this life, whether it's an ancestral karma from your parents or their grandparents or so on and so forth, whether it's collective karma, whether it's karma from past lives. You got things that you're dealing with that you have no freaking clue that you're doing. You're like, why am I? Like, I was talking to this kid that I met here in Guatemala, very nice kid, very smart kid. And he has, he's autism. He's autistic, excuse me. He's on the higher functioning end of the spectrum, but he also has ADHD, and he's one of the smartest kids I've ever spoken to. He's only 19 years old. But he's like, yeah, I'm like really depressed. I've been on antidepressants and this and that. And, I study Gene Keys, extensively. And, I looked at his Gene Keys profile, and he had a Gene Key, the first Gene Key in there, which one of his challenges is entropy, which entropy is like the lack of energy or the lack of creative energy. And it happens just based on your chemical structure. And when you get low at times, it can feel really low and you can feel depressed. You're like, why don't I have this energy? And it's like, creativity doesn't happen all the time. You're not supposed to be creative 100% of the time. Sometimes you're going to feel really creative and sometimes you're not. So like, he doesn't even understand that he's on antidepressants and he thinks that there's something wrong with him. Right. So there's genius in all of us. And we all need to realize that the system that has been created for human beings to thrive has really been a secret mission that's been to keep human beings at a very low level of frequency and not rise to who they actually are. Those are the systems that are in place right now. The financial structure, the governmental structure, it's all to keep people this way. It's to get us to think that we have control of our own lives, right? But it's to suppress all of this. It's to suppress us chemically. It's to suppress us spiritually. It's to suppress us mentally. Everything is to suppress us. And I'm not saying, oh, woe is me. Like, that's not what I'm saying. Like, I'm not the victim. I'm just letting you know what the system is. And so in order to flip the script, you're going to have to remove yourself from the system, see the system, and then re-implement yourself into the system and figure out how to be able to change your life for the better as well as everybody's lives around you.
Okay. Now I wanna get into the Gene Keys. And how did you first discover that?
Through a friend. I was it was a doctor that I was going to, and she was like, hey, I think this book would be really good for you. It was between that and human design, and I was like, well, let me look at Gene Keys first. And I had just gotten out of a relationship, and I had a lot of questions about certain things, and I started to read that book, and it literally was like speaking to my soul. It was speaking to my soul on a level that I never knew existed. And the reason why is because Gene Keys is based on, in Gene Keys, for those of you that don't know what Gene Keys is, it's a system that takes the Chinese ancient divination system, which is like their tarot, called the I Ching, and astrology as well, and using those two metaphysical systems to be able to pinpoint, based on your specific DNA, which is the time you were born and where you were born, how to access higher levels of consciousness and how to understand why your life is the way that it is and how to move through the specific challenges to access certain gifts and certain things that make you who you are. So I dove into it like full throttle because I had, so, when you're in pain, you have so many questions. You know what I mean? Like, when you're happy, you're just enjoying, you're like, oh, this is great. But when you're in pain and like you want to know why, or you want to feel better, that's when like you have all these questions. And I had questions at that time, and I wanted to not just get out of the pain, but I wanted to know why I was in pain. Like, how did I even get here? And, this was like probably one of the most serious relationships that I just gotten out of. And I was like, you know what? I want to do some introspective analyzing and looking at why my relationships have all gone the way that they've gone. Like, what was the reason for them, right? Was it to understand myself better? Was it to learn how to be a better man? Like, what was it? And so, and how did I get to these places? And I started going back and looking at what was the correlation in all the relationships. And, I started to see that the problem was me, right? It wasn't them. The problem was me, right? The problem was, me not being stable in specific situations. My problem was me wanting to work too hard or thinking something had to be a certain way or trying to control situations, right? My inability to communicate was a large part of some of the issues. So like I started seeing all these patterns and I was like, oh, wow. And then I looked into the gene keys and I started seeing how the gene keys or the reasons why I was the reason why I am the way I am, right? And where it comes from and why that's there. And once you understand like where something comes from, where it comes from and why it's there, you can start to change it. But usually it's hard to change something if you don't know the backstory behind it. It's like, oh, I just talk a lot because I talk a lot. And it's like, no, you don't talk a lot because you talk a lot. You talk a lot because you're afraid of silence. You're afraid of silence because of this, and this, right? And so everything is correlated. Nothing just happens, right? Everything is a correspondence. There's a cause and then there's a effect. There is a action and then there's a reaction. There can never be a reaction without an actual action, right? So when you understand that it's all connected.
Okay. And now, how long ago was this that you discovered gene keys or were introduced to it?
Gene keys was 2022, I believe. Like beginning of 2022, yeah.
You discovered it, and where'd you go with it from there?
Gosh, I mean, so gene keys is a very intense system, and it's a very profound knowledge to embark on, and it takes a lot to understand it. It's not something you just pick up and, oh, let me read this or audiobook it. Like that doesn't work. So each gene key, so that audiobook is 35 hours, and the real book is like almost 600 pages. And it's like a textbook. It's not like a regular book. So you're like going through this stuff. And so there's a few different like programs in the gene keys. So I've taken every single program. So there's the activation sequence, which is more about like your life's work and your purpose. Then there's the Venus sequence, which is all about your love and relationships. And the Pearl, which is all about prosperity and abundance. And so I took all of those and, and then I would meet people, and every time I met somebody, I'd be like, hey, let me bring up your gene keys, and like, I swear to God, everybody's like got a gene key profile that knows me, and somebody was like, why don't you teach this stuff? Like, you love it so much. I was like, you know what? I just like it, and then eventually I was like, you know what? I'm doing this so much, this person's right. Why don't I just teach it? And so I got certified to guide people through the gene keys. And late last year, we did Candace Raboyo, who's a friend of mine and a psychic medium. We ended up doing a course on the Venus sequence, which is one of the courses in the gene keys, which is all on love and relationships, as well as she brought a different component, which was what she teaches, which is somatics of the body, of moving through trauma in your body. So we kind of coupled it together, which had never been done before. And we really had some incredible things happen in that course, or that program, I should say. So it was really beautiful to see. And, I pretty much use gene keys as kind of a foundational tool to understand people at a higher level. Because if you don't understand people at a metaphysical level, you don't understand them. You can pull certain things of, oh, okay, like a therapist would sit you down and like, well, tell me about your mother, tell me about your father, tell me about traumatic, situations when you were younger. And then they try to use the tool book or their books and their understanding of people to diagnose you. I'm not trying to diagnose anything. I'm just trying to understand you, right? There's no diagnosis. There's nothing to diagnose. I just want to understand you, why you are the way you are. And then I want to understand what the next level of that is. What are your gifts? Like, how can we get you to move towards that? It's a very different approach than I think therapy. Therapy does some really great things. But when you're talking about things from a metaphysical level, you remember I said everything's spiritual before it's physical. You're now addressing the root of the issue. You go the other way around, you're addressing a part of it, but you still have digging to do.
Okay.
And that's why the Gene Keys is so beautiful, because it doesn't just talk about us in a sense. It talks about all of human existence, like why humanity is the way that it is. Why is there the wars in Israel and Russia? Like, why are we even dealing with that? Like, where does that come from? Why does society look the way that it does? Like, it all comes from a specific way of thinking and a way of being. And so once you understand that, you can understand things at a much higher level, and you have more compassion and understanding and patience for a lot of things. Like, I wasn't patient with certain things before. I wasn't as kind with specific things before, until I started to really understand the Gene Keys. And that's why I say there's no right or no wrong. There's nothing that's right or wrong. It's just based on the situation. Like, there's something morally that we may view as right or wrong, but in the grand scheme of evolution, it's just existence. Does that make sense?
So would you say there's nothing morally right or morally wrong?
No, I say morally, I believe there's things right or wrong, but in the grand scheme of things,
in the grand
right, as people, right, somebody may say this or cut us off on the road, and we're like, that's wrong. Why is it wrong? Well, they almost hit my car. Why is that wrong? Because they put me in danger. But why is that wrong? Right? Because I feel this way. Oh, that's why it's wrong, because you feel a certain way about what they did to you. Right? And that's usually what it comes down to. We feel a specific way about an issue or a topic or something that we see or something that somebody does to us. And then we draw an opinion or a conclusion to whether it's right or wrong based on if it's good or bad to our lives. Right? And you see that culturally across the country, across the world, when you see somebody in a different country, eat a dog, and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe they do that. It's so wrong, blah, 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 right? But that's their way of life, right? So why is it wrong, right? So we can all draw conclusions, what's right and what's wrong. I truly believe that we're all going to move away from, eating animals and, kind of going back to this way of life where we're more in touch with nature, and nature is more in touch with us. I think that's the direction that we're going. We're gonna start moving back into in the next, several. I probably call it 50 to 100 years. Like that's what's going to start happening. But I think right now it's for us to awaken to the fact that there needs to be a change, and that we need to start taking control of where we want to be in our lives.
Okay. I get you. So you think we're going to have a point where 50 to 100 years where we're not living the way we are?
There's no way to sustain living the way that we live right now. It's not sustainable.
Why do you say that?
Resources are being squeezed by the top. There's more and more poor people every day in the United States, and the rest of the world. There's manipulation across the entire country of the United States, as well as several other countries, and there's no way to consistently sustain this. There's AI being brought into the picture now. People are losing more jobs. Government funding is getting cut. There's got to be something that changes to be able to support the evolution of our species moving forward in the next 100 years. There's no way. Can't keep going like this. Right, we're having earthquakes in China. We're having earthquakes in New York. When has the earthquake ever been in New York? Dubai is flooded underwater with more rain than they've ever had in the entire existence of the world. Right? There's things that are happening that shouldn't be happening, and it's the Earth's way, as well as some other ways of showing us that there needs to be a shift. There needs to be a change.
Okay. So I want to transition a little bit.
Sure.
Now, how did you get involved in relationship coaching? Was that along the lines or along the time of Gene Keys?
It was. And I think a lot of it had to do with the way that I was able to communicate to people as I was going through the transmission of the Gene Keys. And as that light and that energy started to kind of awaken my soul, I started to be able to see dynamics very differently. I started to be able to understand women, the feminine, the masculine very, very differently. And, as being a football player, you would assume that, this guy is extremely intense and it's all about the rah, rah, rah and the, kind of the old stuff that I was talking to you about when I was playing football, which if you're playing football, it's a completely different story. But when it comes to the dynamics of love and being in love and finding the right person for you and being able, and it's not just about partnership, but it's about unionship. And when I say unionship, it's about people. It's about your ability to have great relationships with everybody, not just your significant other. It's about being able to have great relationships with your children, your brother, your siblings, your parents, right? The biggest thing that I see is like so much pain is caused by the emotional baggage that people hold from not having great relationships with their family. And then that stems into not having a great relationship with a partner, right? It's like, if you can heal people from that perspective, from the bottom up, everything becomes a beautiful way of life. And so I kind of fell into it, started helping friends and family, and then realized that, there was a real opportunity to move through and help other people. And, it started more with women just because women understand the spiritual aspect of the teachings a lot easier than men. But it's also transitioned to working with more men as of late due to the fact that men don't have a support system. That's the reason why so many men suffer. And you don't realize how many men are actually hurting in pain because they can't talk about something. I'll tell you a crazy story. I was going to save it for the Breakfast Club, but you'll get first dibs on it. I'll tell people when I get back. But I was in Peru 3 weeks ago, and I was doing San Pedro, and it's called Huachuma. Huachuma is in English is San Pedro.
I was going to ask you about this.
Yeah, and that's in San Pedro is just cactus, and it's been used by the Andeans and the shamans for hundreds of years to be able to reach higher levels of consciousness and be able to gain answers to life. And so I was going through this with a shaman there, which I'd done it several times, but this was the last time I had done it. And it was the deepest journey that I'd gone through. And we were, hiking through the mountains, and, I ended up, probably spending about 2 to 3 hours in the mountains. And then we walked back down the mountain. And then there was a horse there. And I love how beautiful horses are, but I never really spent a lot of time around a horse in a long time. So I remember walking up to the horse and just kind of allowing the horse to come to me. And I remember placing my hand on the horse, and it was almost like I could feel like his entire existence. It was so much power in it. It was beautiful, but we walked further down to the bottom of the hill, and Wilson, who's the shaman, takes me through this ancient kind of civilization down there. And there was this guy down there that we started talking to, and he said, he was just this guy, and he was just like, yeah, I came down here to clear my mind. I'm from New Jersey, but I also live here, but I'm deciding if I want to go back because my mom's in New Jersey and I'm just having a tough time and I just want to clear my mind. And, I just saw how much pain he was in. So I literally, we laid him down on a blanket and we took him through a breathwork session, me and the shaman and Wilson. And we had him do breathwork in the middle of the pyramids, right down there. And the amount of pain that man had that he was holding on to, he was just crying. He was like, I don't want to be bad anymore. I want to be good. I want to be good to people. I just want to be happy. I don't want to be like this anymore. It was heavy. It was really heavy. And, we were there with him for about an hour, probably for 30 minutes. We did breath work, but, he was just boohooing and crying. And, I just kind of consoled him and, helped him move through the energy. And then when he came out of it, I just kind of put him back together. And, that was a big reminder as to why I'm here and why I do what I do. And, you don't have to worry about where you need to go. God's always going to take you to where you need to go, because that day he knew that I was supposed to go serve that man that, I knew nothing from him from a can of paint. I just knew that he was hurting and he was in pain. I wanted to help him. You know what I mean? So like, it's beautiful when you can just hold that kind of space for men. And like I said, men don't have that. Men don't have support systems. Like if he had me, he wouldn't been able to move through that. And there's a lot of men that deal with that because, people care about babies and women, but when it comes to men, it's like, or animals, I should say too, right? Like people will donate more to a animal nonprofit than they will to a nonprofit that helps, men out or young boys. It's just the facts of it. Right. So, and I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that, right? You can put your money wherever you want to put your money to, but I'm just saying like there's a large part of men that are overlooked. And these men were young boys at a time. And these young men were boys that didn't know how to be men. They didn't have the right people around them to show them how to be a man. I had some great examples of how to be a man, but I also learned a lot of things along my way that weren't taught to me. So it's like, if I can hold that space and create that space for young men, as well as men in general, I think that it can be a very special thing to be able to help raise the consciousness. Because a lot of women that I work with, their main thing is I can't find a man that's this, and this. And I understand it because there's not a lot of them. But at the same time, if we're not creating men that are like this, and this, caring, compassionate, awakened to their soul, an awakened gentleman, right? Confident leaders, walking in purpose, no fear. Like if you don't meet that, there's no way for the feminine to thrive. There's no way. So we got to start.
Why do you say there's no way for the feminine to thrive if you don't meet those?
Because the feminine needs something with structure, like a very safe space with structure to be able to thrive. A structure that allows her to be free, because that structure uplifts her. If you don't have that as a woman, you're always going to constantly be worried. You're always going to constantly be doing things that are in the masculine that don't allow you to be the feminine. So that's what I'm saying, is that you need a very safe container to be able to flourish. It's like putting a bird into, or a parrot into, the jungle. That parrot is in its environment. It flourishes. It's nature, right? We're no different. So a woman needs to be able to be in that same free space. And as a man needs a woman to be able to allow him to be in that free space as well, to be able to provide that. Right? Unencumbered by judgment, unencumbered by fear of him being who he needs to be. Like, love is free on both sides of the fence.
Okay. Now, I've got a question now that you're talking about love. You, speaking of the Breakfast Club, you brought up on Valentine's Day on the Breakfast Club about how there needs to be a union of the masculine and the feminine. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, union is, when I say union, it's really a deep level of soul connection, right? A union is a energetic, woven tapestry of love that allows both parties to be one, right? In the relationship, because when you're out of the relationship, you're separate, but in the relationship, you need to be one. Right? You can't be in a relationship and then I'm over here being me and then you're over here being something completely different than relationship, right? The relationship's one thing, and then you have the two different people outside of the relationship. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Doesn't mean that they're
so it's three different things.
Correct. There's
basically
the relationship, and then there's you, and then there's the other person. And if you fill your cup up, but you don't fill the relationship's cup up, there's no way for the relationship to thrive. Right. So it's like you have to fill your cup up and the relationship at the same time. You can't do just one, because one is going to suffer. If you fill up all the relationship, but you don't fill yourself up, there's no growth. There's no understanding. There's no improvement. Right. And if you don't grow in a relationship, if you both don't grow in a relationship, there's no way for the relationship to grow. And that's the problem that is happening right now. There's these awakenings across the board that are happening with women because the spiritual side is coming in through the feminine right now. In the West, specifically. In the East, it's a little bit different because women are suppressed and men are more spiritual in the East, if that makes sense. But here it's coming through the women, and they're in relationships where they're realizing like, damn, I made this decision a long time ago when I wasn't the person that I am today. And this person is still the same. And that's a big problem because you can't be mad at someone who is still the same person you married. You can't. But it's just the nature of the beast, because if there's no growth, there's no progress. Where there's no progress, there's no power in the relationship. When there's no power in the relationship, there's no energy. When there's no energy, something dies. It's just how it works.
It's interesting to me how you said you can't be mad at the person you married for being the person you married because they didn't change. Which I get.
Yep. Okay.
But I think the inner like improver in me, or the growth-based person in me, kind of thinks and assumes like you should be changing. Even if you married this person, they should be different at some point in time. Even if that means, for example, like this is just something coming to my mind, like a basic example. You guys both work whatever job. 10 years down the line, you might be more successful and have a better career and further in life.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. And when I say change, I mean growth, right? Because I don't want to confuse, somebody changing with somebody growing, right? Because somebody can change and become very different and not the person that you like. I'm talking about growing. And yeah, you're talking about things that can happen physically, right? Like a physical change. Like I can marry somebody who I feel extremely attracted to, and then 10 years later, I don't feel extremely attracted to this person, right? Things can change dramatically. Or I could be starting in a career and my partner is doing their own thing, and my partner can have a really successful company and my company may not be as successful. Does that change the dynamic of the relationship? Sure, it does. But if it's a true union and it's a true relationship, then the basis of the relationship is the growth of the relationship and the growth of the two individuals. Right. So as long as those two things are happening, then the relationship will flourish. But if the company, let's say I have a partner, her company grows, my company, is sustainable, but it doesn't grow to the level of hers. But I'm still growing as an individual. She's still growing as an individual in the relationship, and we're still pouring into the relationship. Why would the dynamic change? Right. Like what you do has nothing to do with the relationship. In terms of jobs, right? Like it doesn't matter what they do. Like I'm not looking at somebody like, oh, what? And this is me as a man. I'm speaking for myself, but I don't look at somebody as, oh, what do they do for work per se, as in me trying to figure out if we can be financially successful together. I don't look at that because I don't worry about finances. You know why? Because I understand that I can create and build whatever I want when I want it. I don't worry about that. It's going to come when it's supposed to, right? I look at a woman and say, is this woman going to be, if I'm not here, would I be completely 100% comfortable with this woman raising my children? Right? It's who she is, the background of who she is, the things that she talks about, the essence in that, and who she is, how she handles things emotionally, where she pays attention to, what she wants to change in the world. Does she even want to see things change in the world, or does she just want to live in the world? Right? Like I'm at a certain level where I don't want to be with somebody who doesn't want to help put something back at a very high level into this world. If you're not talking about problems, worldly problems, and how to solve them, I'm just not interested in it, because I moved past that. I'm not looking to build a watch collection. I'm not looking to build a car collection or buy a bunch of real estate. That's not why I'm here. That's just not where I'm at. Some people may be there, and I'm not saying that that's right or wrong. That's just where you're at, and you got to know what's right for you. I know what's right for me, right? And so relationships are very hairy because you're talking about 20 different things that all play a part in the greatest thing that makes our lives either beautifully seen and heard and felt, or can be, hell on earth at times, right? Like, your relationships dictate your life. If you have beautiful relationships, you have a beautiful life. If you have some pretty shitty relationships, your life's probably not going to be that good. And so understanding that, I choose the relationships before I choose anything else. I choose the energy before I choose anything else. Because if the energy is not there, if the energy doesn't align with you, right? Like, you can like somebody, you can think they're attractive, you can feel a certain way around them, but if the energy doesn't coincide with how you feel, and it makes you feel a very different way, like, you're like, damn, I don't feel good when I'm with this person, or like, I really want to be around them, but every time I'm around them, like, I feel like we're forcing a conversation, or I really want to spend time with this person, but when I spend time with them, I don't feel like they're present. It's probably not the right situation. It's not to say that there's not an energetic connection or a emotion or a physical connection, right? Everybody's got an aura, and there's specific things that we're attracted to. But if you're going to be with someone, that's a completely different energy that you have to feel with them, as a man and as a woman.
No, that makes sense. What would you say you think is the biggest issue in romantic relationships today?
Honestly, men and women don't know how to be friends.
They don't know how to be friends?
Nope. They only know how to be partners in a relationship. But if they're not partners, they can't be friends. Most people, like, this is the thing. Most people date to be in a relationship. Most people don't date to be like, damn, can I really be friends with this person? Like, let's really be friends. Can I really be your freaking friend before we even get to that level? That doesn't happen. And it's part of the dating culture that I think needs to change.
So are you saying dating cultures should be approaching dating with the mindset of maybe this will be a friendship?
I'm saying to approach it as, I'm going to figure out how much fun I can have with this person, and and enjoy how exciting life could be with this person before I even think about, actually being with this person.
Okay.
I'm saying, can you show up as someone without expectations at all of what something could be, and show up for this person as just you genuinely wanting to get to know them as a friend? Right? Now, I understand as a date, men are usually paying for a bill, and, now I'm going to hear these conversations of, hey, like, who should we split the bill if we're just friends? Like, no, I think a man should still court a woman, but I think there should be a friendship established, like a real genuine friendship established. Like, I don't know if you have a friend where you like every time I'm with this person, or like, this is the only person or only two people that can make me laugh like this. Like, where it's like a genuine laugh to where you're like hurting inside. You're like, damn, I haven't laughed like that. And I'll give you a perfect example of this, because the average adult laughs about 15 times a day.
Okay.
The average child laughs over 300 times a day.
Wow. That's a huge difference.
It's a significant difference.
I expected it to be different, but wow, that's a big amount.
Over
Okay.
70%. Okay. Why? Because the world hasn't taken them over. The world has still allowed them to be innocent. And when you're a child, the only thing you care about is being curious about the experience and what you experience, and staying in the moment. That's the only two things you care about, because there's nowhere to be. There's nothing to do except go to sleep. That's literally how you do it. You're like, I'm going to play, sleep, wake up, play, sleep, right? Like, that is all you do as a child. And then as an adult, you become stressed out. You become tight. What is stress? Why is everybody like, oh, my back hurts, my neck hurts? I've seen you 10 times adjust your neck, right? Unless you got some scoliosis going on, like there's stress in your body because of thoughts that you're thinking about, deadlines that you feel
because of you getting kicked out of StreamYard, it causes me stress.
Listen, but why is it causing you stress? Like what is the stress coming from? Why is the stress even there?
Because I put pressure on myself to have episode 50 released.
But why?
On the 22nd. Because
why on the 22nd?
Because it's Mindset Monday.
So why not on the next week on Mindset Monday?
Because that would mean I skip a week.
Why not skip a week?
Because
you see what I'm saying though? You see what I'm saying? Like there's this pressure that
I have a system.
Well, what is this system? What's the purpose of the system? Why is it there? Does the system make you happy? Like what's the reason of the system?
It keeps things in
organized
flow.
And flow.
Yes, it keeps them organized. I am a planner. Like the Vogo in me.
But what happens if there's no plan?
I've been getting better at there not being a plan.
It's not that you don't need a plan, but what happens if the plan doesn't go the way the plan you want it to go? What happens if there's a detour in the plan? What happens if you're going to a different country for a little bit and you realize some things there and you didn't know that? You're like, damn, there's a reason why I didn't release this episode right now. Right? There's things that happen in your life and they're happening for you. And when you allow them to happen, the stress dissipates. You're like, I know this doesn't feel good right now, but I'm just going to breathe into this and I'm just going to allow this to be and see why it happens, why it's happening. I'm not going to force it because every time I force it, I'm stressed. Stress comes from force. Good stress is okay, right? Lifting weights, good stress is okay. Taking a hike, that's tough, good stress. Doing yoga, good stress, right? Sitting here worrying about where the next paycheck is coming from, it's not good stress. Sitting here worried about, I got to get this deadline done, it's not good stress. So what? Right? Are you going to lose money because of if you're going to lose money because of something, then sure, go for it, right? But like, why do we have all of these agendas and why do we have all these expectations of this is how it has to be? That's all
I don't know the answer to that question.
And it's not a question that I want you to answer right now, but it's just a thought of just why, right? Like I was in the shower the other day and I was thinking about this and it was like, I was thinking about like buying something else. Like, why do I want that? Like I asked myself, why do I want that? And then on the flip side of that, I said, well, I want that because of X, right? And then I asked myself, do I need it? And I was like, nah, I don't need it. So then I went back to square one, which was, why do I want it? And it wasn't why I wanted it just so I could wear it. It was I wanted it because of how it would make me look and how it would make me feel when I see other people when I look that way. Right? And so I was like, I don't need it. I just want it because of what I think other people or how I think other people are going to view me and how they feel about me. That's why I want it. Right? And so it's very introspective, but I've moved to a place in my life where I'm looking at my life as to how I can truly help the whole. And there's no way for me to help the whole if I'm worried about how people are going to view me because of how I want them to look at me. There's no way. That's why I'm talking to you the way I'm talking to you. I can talk to you in 20 different ways, but I'm just talking to you as me because whoever's going to resonate with this message is going to resonate with it. Everybody else is not for them right now. Maybe somebody will listen to it in 2 years and be like, yo, I heard that episode with you and Bret, and that shit really hit me. And you're like, damn, I filmed that 2 years ago. Right? Everybody's time is right on time. Your time is right on time. Timing is going to occur when it's right for you. Again, you signed up for this a long time ago, and you signed up with this with specific contingencies and things that had to happen for you to get to certain places. Don't forget that. Again, everything is spiritual before it's physical.
Everything is spiritual before it's physical.
100%.
What do you mean it's spiritual before it's physical?
Everything is at a soul level before it comes down to a physical level.
Okay.
You have several different parts of who you are. And at the highest level, it's your soul. Your soul is not your physical body. It's not.
I agree. I know.
And your soul doesn't know time. There's no time for your soul. It's time for your body, because your body knows it's getting older. Your body knows that your cells are starting to age. Your body knows certain things, but at the soul level, your soul just exists. There's nowhere to be. There's no fear. There's nothing to do. It's just to be present. And it's a very hard concept to understand because of the system that we live in. And I go back and I'm saying the system is not designed for us to thrive as people. It's designed for a very select few people to thrive. People that are college educated, the people that have good networks, the people whose parents went to college, the people who live in specific neighborhoods, people who look certain ways. Like there's a system that is designed for a very select group of people. And it's changed slowly but surely over time to where it's more inclusive of all people, but it's still creating a bigger separation between the wealthy and the poor. It's not moving forward. We're like, oh, technology is moving forward. This is moving forward. Everything is that has happened in the last 10 years has created a greater gap between who has money and who does not have money. So who has access to good resources to who doesn't have access to good resources, to who has good access to food, who doesn't have good access to food. Like, how's that getting better? I don't believe we're getting better. I think we're getting worse. I think spiritually and mentally, people are starting to wake up, which is a great thing. But I think, and as a whole, we're getting worse. We're in World War III, technically. What everything says online. World War III, World War III, World War III. Right? We're in a World War III. We're getting better. Why are we at war? We're getting better. Why is there still poor countries? We're getting better. Why is there still people suffering? Why is anxiety at all-time high? Why is obesity in the U.S. at all-time high if we're getting better? Why are more people divided than ever before? We're getting better though, right? We just had a pandemic, right? People forgot about that. They're like, oh, the world's coming to an end, and now all of a sudden, everything's getting better. Like, I don't feel like it's getting better. I feel like I'm getting better. I feel like my energy is getting better. I feel like I'm leveling up, and I don't choose to acknowledge negative things happening, but I do choose to understand what is happening in the world so that I can make a difference in it.
Okay. And how do you go about understanding what's happening in the world?
Research. Do your own research. We have way more access to information than our parents or our grandparents ever did. We have almost 200 times that, whatever they did, probably more. Okay? They have the newspaper and TV. That was it, right? Do your homework. If you're really genuinely interested to learn what's happening with the world, look it up. Don't just read an article. Read the article, dissect the article, and then go do your homework on the article. See if it's really true. There's a lot of things that people have told us that, like I said before, we got cut off the first time. The Vatican has 57 miles of literature underneath the Vatican. You know how long 57 miles are? It's like LA to Orange County almost. You're in Boston, so that's like Boston, like Foxborough almost.
Okay.
Right? That's a long freaking way. There's 57 miles worth of literature underneath the Vatican. Why is it in the Vatican, one? And two, why has nobody seen it? And why do you need credentials to be able to go in there? Right? Why? Man, I'm not even going to get religious because that's not somewhere where I think we need to go right now. But there's specific texts that have been hidden for ages that depict a very different reality than we're living in right now. So, I don't want to go too deep into it, but if you're genuinely curious, you can do your research. YouTube, TikTok, online, forums. There's a lot of stuff that you can actually do research in, and just there's experts that have studied this stuff for way longer than I have that you can pull information from. You don't have to do necessarily all the work, but you have to do the research.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I gotcha. So I want to transition. Now, I think you mentioned this in the Breakfast Club. It might have been somewhere else that you mentioned this, but you said what the ultimate question to ask yourself is. And I'm curious what this question means to you and why you consider it the ultimate question to ask yourself. I don't know if you remember the question, but
I say a lot of things and it changes like every other day. So I may have a different question now, but I'm gonna let you ask it anyway. I'm gonna let you ask it anyway.
Well, 2023, Bret said
Yeah.
this was the ultimate question to ask
like
yourself.
10 years ago for me.
Okay.
Right. Yep.
Fucking Bret. We're only halfway through 24, but okay.
I'm moving. I'm not waiting for nobody. I told you 2024. I'm not playing.
Okay. Anyways, is your karma bigger than your willpower, or is your willpower bigger than your karma? Is that not the ultimate question anymore?
That's not the ultimate question, but that's a great question to ask yourself. Right? That's a great question to ask yourself. But what does that question even mean?
I'm asking you that.
Remember I said everything is spiritual before it's physical, right? Sometimes people's karma is so strong that it's so strong that it's so hard for them to move through anything on the physical plane because of what they're holding on to. And so sometimes the karma is so strong that you can't step into a certain part of your life or move through certain things because you just can't get through it. Right? So when I say is your karma bigger than your willpower, is your willpower bigger than your karma? I'm saying is the spiritual so strong that it impacts the physical and you can't move through the physical. And you see this with a lot of people who are in deep pain, who have gone through in and out of addiction or who are holding on to something really, really, really strong. And it's like, it's so strong, they just can't get through it, and it takes a whole lot. But sometimes people just can't move through that karma. So yeah, it's a great question to ask, but that's I
so if that's not the ultimate question, what is the ultimate question?
I think there's several great questions. I think we all have them. I think the biggest one is probably why am I here? It's probably the biggest question that I think most people have. And then once you know why, then the next question is like, well, what am I here to do? Right? Like, why am I here? And then what am I here to do? And so those are probably the two starting places. But like, probably a great question I'd like to continue to ask myself is, what does a good life look like for me? Or what does an incredible life look like for me? Right? Because I think when you can really start taking a step back and saying, well, what do I want my life to look like? Like, why am I doing these things? What am I really trying to get out of it? Like, why do I like, are my habits serving me or are they not? Like, why am I vegan? Why do I go to the gym 5 times a week? Why do I wake up and do this when why do I meditate every day? Like, what kind of experience do I want to have in this life? It's like, that's probably one of the best. Like, you just were going to just journal or meditate on like, what do I want to experience in my lifetime before I leave? Do I want to have kids? Do I want to be married? Do I want to have a partner? Do I want to travel the world? Do I want to go dive with whales? Like, what kind of experiences do I want to jump out of a plane 50 times? Like, what kind of experiences do I want to have in my life? Because that's really all you, at the end of the day, when you're, laying on your deathbed, if you ever get to that point, you're not going to be thinking about like, oh, that person cut me off on the road, or man, I really dislike that one freaking math teacher that gave me a D- in geometry. Like, no, you're going to think about, all the people that you love, all the beautiful memories that you created with them, and all the incredible things that you did that brought you the most joy in your life. That's all this thing we call life is about, is experiences. That's what we call memories after the experience. So how are you going to experience your life? What are you going to do with it? Are you going to do things for yourself? Are you going to do things for other people? You're going to buy a bunch of things. What are you going to do? Like I said, there's no right or wrong. It's just, how do you want to experience this life?
I love all of that. Okay. I'll give you that. I guess you do have a new ultimate question. I guess 2023 was 10 years ago.
It was a long time for me. I moved fast.
Apparently you have. It's my fault on that one.
No, it's all good.
I like that though, like just getting curious on what you want your life to look like.
I don't think it's curious. I don't think it's curious at all, because curious is I think a very basic level. I think curiosity is the first step, but I think it's more about meaning than curiosity, because meaning changes you. Curiosity, it just piques your interest, which, like I said, can lead to the meaningfulness of something. But like, I want to know, what meaningful experience do you want in your life? Not what you're curious about. If we're talking about work, that can be one thing, right? What am I curious about, or what things do I want to solve? That's one thing. But when I'm talking about experiences, I'm talking about on a deep life level, what kind of experiences, meaningful experiences, that when you're laying on a deathbed at 85 or 90, you're like, damn, that was so fucking meaningful to me. Like, I'm crying as I'm dying. Like I'm just genuinely in so much bliss because I was able to do these things. I was able to be with this person for 50 years, or I was able to be friends with this person for 60 years, like whatever that is. I was able to change this many people's lives, or I was able to, travel the world with these people, or I was able to, whatever it is, like meaningful experiences. Curious experiences you'll do in your day to day. Like, oh, I'm curious about this book, or I'm curious about this topic, I'll read it. That's curious. That'll move you. But I'm talking about meaningful experiences. So when you think about that, you're not thinking about money. You're not thinking about money. You're not thinking about career. You're thinking about meaning. What did I do? If I told you I worked my whole life and I made $1 billion, is that really meaningful? Nope. There's no meaning in that for me. None. And even if I decided to give all that money away when I die, it's not really meaningful, because I don't get to see it. Meaning is what you do when you're here, who you do it with while you're here, how you make them feel when you're with them, and how they make you feel when they're with you. That's meaning. That's love. That's unencumbered joy, beauty of living. Like that's what we're here to do. We're here to paint a masterpiece, and the canvas is there, and you can paint it with whatever you want to paint it with. You can paint it with peanut butter and jelly if you wanted to. Like, it doesn't matter. It's your canvas. Nobody told you how to paint. Like, it's how you want to paint it. Paint it with your hand, paint it with your feet. You know what I mean? Face all on it, whatever you want to do. You use whatever colors you want to use, whatever material you want. This is life. And I'm tired of people talking about how you have to live it. You don't have to live it anyway. You get to live it how you want to. And I'm no expert. I have a nice bio because it sounds good, and we all have to have something that we call ourselves in this world today. Like, oh, what do you do? I'm gonna ask people nobody asks me down here what I do. They're so happy to meet me. Oh, hey, where are you from? Los Angeles. Oh, great. Okay. So tell me about your travels. Like, nobody cares about what you do. Real people don't care about what you do. They care about how you make them feel.
That's facts. No, I love how you said that. Honestly, Curtis is the reason, and that comment that he had made to us, how people only ask that because they just want to know how you can help them. And that's where I came up with the who are you at the core, because I don't care about what you do.
Yep.
I'm not looking for what you can help me with. Like, deep down and the nitty gritty, who are you? You
Yeah.
know?
Well, this is the thing, right? Like when you really look at like who helps you, right? Like I think I try to help all people however I can, but I help the people that I spend the most time with, like usually friends and family, right? So, people will like try to network and do this to build businesses. And it's like, I get it. I get that we have to, market ourselves and whatnot. But at the end of the day, like a real community, when you really build a community, like everybody helps each other out. You don't have to worry about, like we were just talking earlier, you're going to Bali because somebody in your community said that, hey, I have an opportunity for you to go. Do you want to go? Now you're going to Bali, right? I'm sure at some point or another, you're going to flip that around and repay this person, or somebody else in the community is going to repay that person, right? Like that's just how it works. Like we all, and that's the problem with I think a lot of why people suffer and why people are anxiety and why people are in pain is because there's no community. Like you go to work, you go home by yourself or with your family, you sit there with your dog or your cat, and they're your best freaking friend, which is great. I love animals, right? But they're your best freaking friend of your kids. And then you go back out and do it all over again, right? And then you're like, well, I really want a significant other, or I really feel alone, or I really don't feel heard. And it's like, well, you don't have time to think about that when you're in a community, because you're constantly with other people. You're constantly being able to help other people. They're constantly helping you and pouring into you. Like there's no worry. There's no worry about stuff because everything is shared. Like it's a beautiful place to be. And I, just traveling through Peru and traveling in Mexico and traveling in Guatemala, I see how beautiful like having a real community is, and how when people stick together and there's no jealousy, there's no, anybody trying to outdo anybody else. Everybody just so happy that, oh, yo, what's up? How you doing? Like people just see, they're just happy, genuinely happy to see you. What are you doing? Oh, what are you doing today? Oh, great. Have a great time. Everybody here in Guatemala, before you eat your food, they always say, bien provecho, bien provecho. They always say that, which means have a good meal in Spanish. Right. And I was like, just genuinely curious. Like, I was like, why do they do this? But it's just to wish somebody to enjoy something that they know is so nutritious for them and so good to their soul. Right. Food is what we all gather around for families and breaking bread together. Right. But like to say, hey, enjoy your food. It's kind of like toasting, right? Hey, salud, toast, right? Enjoy your food. I really hope you enjoy your food. Like somebody said it to me in English. She was like, hey, how you been? Blah, blah, blah. We were talking. And he was like, oh, all right, I'll see you later. I hope you really enjoy your food. Nobody ever says that to me. You really enjoy your food? Wow, I am going to enjoy my food. Thank you. So there's beauty in community, and there's beauty in simplicity. And that's, I think, a big thing that I've learned, traveling the world and being able to welcome all these different people and cultures into my life. And life is really simple. We make it very complicated in the West. It's really not that hard.
So how can people create more of a community for themselves?
It starts with honestly putting yourself in a position or in an environment that's good for you. I think that's a big thing. The reason why a lot of people I don't think really resonate with certain places is because their soul or their heart is just not there. It's like, you hate the cold and you hate the rain. Why are you in Seattle? It rains there 80% of the year. You wonder why you're depressed and on antidepressants. It's like, bro, like leave, But like we all feel like we have to be somewhere. Like, and I thought I had to be in LA, and I realized that I don't. I love LA. I love what it's given to me. I love the people there. I love my family's still there. But like, I understand that there's beautiful other things in the world that are calling me, And so I think we all stay where we are because we're scared to leave. It's the same way we stay in the job, in the relationship, the same weight, same level of health. We're afraid to do what's required, or we understand that there's going to be a sacrifice that's involved, and a lot of people aren't willing to make the sacrifice. There's sacrifices in everything. Like I may not be able to do this, but I'm going to be able to live a life like this. It's just what you got to do for the time being, but it's like nature. There's no season that lasts all year long.
There's no season that lasts all year long. Okay.
Again, we're no separate than nature. There's no separateness whatsoever. We're more connected than, we're just as connected, I should say, as the birds and the bees.
Okay.
Got a lot to digest there, huh?
I'm just thinking. Okay. No, okay. So I want to transition again, and you might think this is not prevalent anymore, but I think this is a very prevalent thing, even though you said this, what might have seemed like 10 years ago for you. But anyways, you brought up in the Breakfast Club about the passion formula. And I would love if you could discuss what that is and how you discovered that.
Yeah. So I sit on the board of a company called the Flow Research Collective, which is the largest scientifically backed organization for understanding peak performance. So like, how do people, CEOs, athletes, how do they stay at the highest level of performance? Like, what does that look like? How does their brain function? What are the habits that they do on a daily basis that give them the results that they get? And Stephen Kotler, who's like a 9 times best-selling author, wrote this or created this organization, and his whole career has been studying flow and peak performance. So when I attended one of their events in like right before the pandemic in 2020, this was a formula that he created, and it's called the passion formula, which is about finding, if you don't know where to go, and this is like a big problem that I see with certain people, is like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what I'm passionate about. Right. Or maybe I had all this success and I just sold a company and I don't know what I want to do next. It's fine. Nobody has a roadmap of what we should be doing. But the passion formula is this, right? Take 5 things that you're interested in. Okay. So, and you want to be very specific. You don't want to just say, I'm interested in cooking, right? You want to say, I'm interested in cooking and how cooking organic foods at this temperature affects my health, right? And let's just say you're like, I'm curious as how the carbon being carbon neutral impacts the environment, specifically in Southeast Asia, right? 5 things that you're interested in. Okay, after you have those 5 things, take 5 things or 5 problems that you see in the world that you want to solve. So I want to be able to solve homelessness throughout the United States. How can I solve homelessness throughout the United States? Or how can I, create a better ocean aquatic environment in off the Gulf of Mexico, because there's these issues, right? And then what you do at the end of that is you take those 5 passions or interests, I should say, with the 5 purpose or challenges, and you want to try to correlate and see which ones like overlap. And then from that, what you're going to see is you're like, damn, I really want to solve this problem, right? So maybe like the organic situation of cooking organic foods has something to do with the problem that you see with obesity in children. So now you're like, I want to create natural, healthy foods to be able to combat obesity in children, and I want to make them affordable. How can I do that? So what it does is it doesn't trick the mind, but it allows the brain to see problems with solutions and then merge them together.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
Now, did you use this passion formula to help you?
I did at the time. Yeah. It was like, what did I want to do at the time? Like, where did I see issues with? And a lot of it was like around coaching and business and figuring out how to help entrepreneurs out at that time. And, obviously, it's shifted since then. And now I haven't used that formula in a while, but I think my brain just works that way where I'm like, oh, problem. Okay. Figure out, okay, I love doing this. Let's figure out how to merge together,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what consists of you being on that board?
Helping out with initiatives with flow, specifically with athletes. So figuring out how to get athletes in more flow. So case studies with athletes. We work with, different surfers and X Games, like downhill skiers and just high intensity sports. So we may actually be doing something with football in the near future to figure out like high flow in football and brain activity and so on and so forth. So yeah, man.
How long have you been doing that?
Since 2021.
Okay. For like 20 years, huh?
It's been it's been too long. It's been too long.
Oh my gosh. So you emphasize a lot in the Breakfast Club to me, to everybody, honestly, I think that you speak to about being clear and having clarity.
Yep.
And how it's worth $1 million. Why do you think that?
Did I say $1 million? I thought I said $1 billion.
No, excuse me. I may have incorrectly stated you there.
Yeah, so that's a big discrepancy, but I'm just pulling your leg. So $1 billion worth of clarity is priceless because when you're clear, you can do anything. When you're clear in your direction, you can do whatever you want to do. But when there's any fogginess or lack of clarity, it becomes very challenging to move. Most people don't move because they're unclear. They just sit there. And these people, you're like, how come every time I meet this person, they're doing the same thing and they can't get over this issue? Because they're unclear. Whether it's the issue, whether it's them, whether it's their path, whether it's all three, they're just unclear. And so you can get clear, like the reason why, I do Curtis's goal planning event every year, unless I'm leading it, is because for 2 days, I spend one day going through the previous year and the next day going over what I want the new year to look like. Right. And just with 2 days, I go into the new year, understanding how I feel about the past year and what I want to accomplish and how I want to be in the new year ahead. Like those two things are priceless. Priceless. And we don't do it enough. We just don't spend the time looking back. We don't spend the time looking forward. Contemplation is very, very, it's a very beautiful thing when you welcome it in your life. To be able to just sit there and watch. I go to this cafe here every morning, and my view is of the water. It's like a beautiful lake right there, and I just sit there and I work. And then when I take a break, I just sit there and I just look at the water, and I just think. There's some great things that just come to mind that I probably wouldn't think about if I wasn't just sitting still at that moment. So just being in nature and allowing yourself to just relax and be, and let whatever comes through come through. Like I always say, like, you can solve anything with a 30-minute walk in nature. You can solve most problems if you just go out and walk for 30 minutes to an hour in nature. Go get some sunlight. You can solve most things. Crazy.
Okay. I like that.
Unless you live in like the snow or, you don't have a lot of, or it's raining, but even if you go walk in the rain, go put a rain jacket on or a poncho and go walk in the rain.
But it's fashion advice.
I mean, unless you just want to get your clothes soaked up, which is fine. You can go do that too, but there's a freedom of nature that purifies the soul, I didn't really recognize that until this trip right here that I'm on.
Really
purifying trip for the soul because of just how much nature I've been in. I literally hiked for 9 days in Peru. Like I went everywhere, Machu Picchu, Sacred Valley, Rainbow Mountain, like you name it, I was everywhere. It was really, really special to be able to do that in the way that I did it and experience Peru like that, so I highly recommend you're dealing with pain, you're dealing with suffering, you're dealing with trauma. First of all, stop calling yourself the victim. Take ownership for what's happening to you, whether it was done to you or you did it to somebody else, and go out and move through the energy and keep moving through the energy until you find some new energy to move on to. So you find an aha moment, and then double down on what makes you feel good. Or if you have an idea and that idea comes through and you're like, oh, that'd be really cool if I did that. That idea just didn't come up for any reason. That idea came up for you to act upon it. Especially when it feels right. You're like, oh, that felt right. Like I should probably do that. And then you wake up the next day and you're like, oh, I'll leave it till another day. And then you wake up the next day and then it gets pushed further and further back. And then all of a sudden you don't act on it. And then you're still kind of back at square one. It's like the universe is going to give you signs. The universe is going to remind you of specific things, but you have to remind yourself every day why you're doing what you're doing. You know what I mean? So I know I've said a lot and I know I've kept you way too long here. So I want to wrap it up the right way. So why don't we do the big question that you have? Because I know you definitely have a big question.
Why do you assume I have one big question?
Because I know you too well.
I have one big question.
I know you have a lot of questions, but I know you have one really big one that you want to ask.
I don't know that I have one really big one. Well, I am curious, what led you ultimately to Utah in June of 2023 to become certified in Breathwork Detox? Just because you met Curtis, just because you suddenly got into spirituality, you were partying, you were a football player, you got into spirituality. Where the hell does you going to Utah to get certified in Breathwork Detox come into the picture? Because also, I think I know a lot of shit. And even back then, I think it was Shannon who was like, there's this former NFL player that's going to be here. I'm like, no, he's fucking not. I've seen the attendance list. There's only 2 guys that are going to be here, and I know both their names. They've never played in the NFL. So how the hell did that happen?
That's hilarious.
Yes, I argued with Shannon, and she's like, I'll introduce you. And I'm like, okay, because you're wrong.
That's funny. So first of all, I love Shannon. She's great. Second of all, I want to say something about spirituality because you said it like it's a religion, and I don't want, and I think a lot of people misconstrue spirituality for almost like a cult kind of thing to just, understanding the way that the universe functions and then being open to a higher welcoming of I call them our God self, but also everything that is. And so, when I say spirituality, I don't mean it as like this way of living. I just say a way of allowing life to come through you instead of come at you. If that makes sense. Right.
Yeah.
But back to your question, your so ultimate question. I love. I did a breathwork event with Curtis in, what was that, June, so May of that year, and he had booked this big like finance company that manages like $2 trillion, like a bunch of people who are very A-type. Cognitive type of people who are very, who are not, I would say, spiritual, like I just explained it, right? And there's like 90 people, and I spoke, and then I brought Curtis up, and then I'm sitting in this room of 90 people watching people breathe and watching their life change before my eyes, and I felt hopeless. And I don't really feel like that for a very long time. And I don't like being in situations where I can't help, And I was like, if I'm going to be introducing people, like, why not? Or if I was going to be working with Curtis, bringing them on stage and stuff like that, like, why not, be able to help, And then I also like saw what people were going through and how their lives would change. And I know how profound, breath work was for me. And, I just see these people's reactions afterwards. And I was like, you know what? I feel like I'm being called to like be able to help in this way as well, And so, I probably gave it like a week, and I wanted to make sure it wasn't just being at the event and going through, seeing it, and then it changes when I leave, And so I gave it about a week, and after the end of that week, I was like, hey, I think I'm gonna come to Utah. He's like, for what? I was like,
he said, for what? Did he really say that?
And he's like, for what? I was like, I think I'm gonna get certified. And he was like, what? I was like, yeah, I think I want to get certified. He's like, oh man, all right, that's dope. Well, let me make sure we got room for you and whatnot. I think we're good, but let me talk to Kelsey and we'll get you up and running. And yeah, that's how I ended up there. And honestly, that retreat was mind blowing for me because I've been to it a few times. I've spoken at it a couple times, and I've seen certain things that we went through from the outside in. But being at that retreat from the inside out and going through everything that everybody went through, that was probably the biggest between that and then Shasta that year. It was like there were some things that I left in Utah. I'll put it that way. Like I transformed physically through that week there in Utah at a level that I don't think I had in a few years, and I think it's also part of everything that's also happened after that in the last year. There's no way that I'd be who I am right now without going through that. That's a very, very special thing. And, I think that people should just go through something like that without the actual certification. It's life changing. Like people, you think you're like, oh, I'm just going to learn how to breathe and teach people, and learn how to teach people how to do breath work. And it's like, nah, you're going to become a completely different person before you're able to do that. Because you have to be a completely different person to be able to serve people in that way. You can't just go in the way you think you are and then come out a breathwork teacher. It just doesn't work like that, So it was great, and I wouldn't change it for the world. It was probably one of the best things I've ever done.
Wow. What would you say? What part of the retreat would you say was the biggest catalyst for you?
Probably the first 3 days were like the biggest changes for me, because the first day we did breath work. The second day we did breath work, and I think we did breath work, and then we had to hold space for the breath work. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And then the third day we had to do it, I think, again, right? But I think it was a different way. I think we just had a partner. Remember, we were switching each time.
Yep.
Day 2, right? So in day 3, and you normally like you do breath work and you're like out of it. You have to come out. You're crying. You got boogers coming out your nose. It's not, and then you got to go wipe it off and then go show up for the other person 10 minutes later while they're breathing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just doing it back to back to back deep like that. I mean, if you did breath work like that 5 days in a row in a group, like there's no way you don't transform your entire life. But it wasn't just the breath work, but it was also like everything else we were doing, learning, the camaraderie, the team building, the having to get up on stage and do certain things that you normally wouldn't do. Like there were so many different elements. Freaking getting them in water. Oh my God, that was terrible.
I love that video.
That was terrible.
That video is the favorite thing.
I had to get in this river that, first of all, like the mud, like the amount of slush that was in there I had to walk into, it was so gross. And then we had to get down to our neck, and that water felt like it was like 25. I mean, what is ice freeze at 28?
It was cold. It was cold.
It was cold. It was freezing.
And Bret was screaming the whole time.
I mean, I wouldn't say the whole time, but like,
I have a video, and you were screaming for like 30 seconds.
Yeah, we were in there for like 3 minutes though, right?
I'm post the video.
Like 2 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we were in there, but sometimes you just got to do things you don't want to do, But it was, everything that I went through in that experience or in that retreat was next level. Completely overhauled a big part of my life. And then we did Shasta right after that, which was just as crazy as that, retreat as well. So last year was a good year for me.
Well, that's great. I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah. And I wouldn't be here without that retreat. You know what I mean? Like, obviously you and I connected while you were.
Neither would I.
Yep. Everything happens. Like I said, like you look back on your life as you take action in your life, and you start realizing like, damn, like in 10 years, I guarantee you, like, I can't believe like this happened from that, and that. Right. And you're gonna start connecting dots. And you're like, damn, this is how life works. But when you're young, you don't get it because you haven't lived enough life to see it evolve.
No, it's true. It's so true. Amanda's mindset wouldn't exist if I didn't get certified in breathwork.
There you go. And it's going to take it. It's going to take a shape of its own, and it's going to take a shape of whatever it's supposed to be for the world. You know, that the thing is leaving expectations out the door, right? Like leaving what you expect of it, leaving what you hope of it at the door, because the energy is going to guide it. You just got to create the container for the energy to thrive through the container, right? And it's going to go as long as it's supposed to. And when it dies, right? And then the energy moves into something else, right? But being tied to something or this outcome, right, it sets you up for disappointment, and it sets you up for unhappiness. And it also shows you that you can't control life. That's a big problem with why people are have anxiety, is because of the uncertainty that they have of what life will be for them. Right? We don't want to repeat past pains, past traumas, past situations that haven't worked out the way we want to. But trying to control that also creates a negative kind of trauma bond to resisting certain things, because you're not going to take specific chances because you don't want this. You may not be dating because you don't want to feel a certain way. You may not be putting yourself in certain situations because I don't want to feel that again. Right. And so we all do it. We retract. We're like, oh, I don't like it. Let me retract, you know, and I see it with all people. I'm here with people who are traveling the world, and I see how many people stay in a spot for 4 or 5 days or a week or 2 weeks. And then life starts to hit them with all the regular things that life hits you with. Right. Because when you're traveling, you can be somewhere for 3 days. And you're like, oh my God, that's such a great time. That you leave and go somewhere else. Right. And so you're not there long enough to actually start feeling the effects of life, right? Of something not being necessarily fun anymore, or maybe having to do certain things, right? So I even see people here that are here because I've been here for 3 weeks now. So I see certain people that are super energetic and happy. And then I saw their energy go like this, because life starts happening again. You start having to deal with other things, relationships, right? And that's why a lot of people that travel a lot are, you know, they stay in certain places and then they leave for, you know, and they do that all over the world because they're there for so long, and then when the energy is done, then they leave. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that at all. Like, I think it's we all have our own journey. We're all doing our certain thing, but it's just interesting to take it all in, you know, and just digest
it. No, I get you.
Yeah.
That's kind of like you said, expectations are the fastest way to unhappiness.
It is. Because when you expect something to happen, you now create a barrier for all the unexpected things to happen. Because if I'm expecting this to look like this, if it doesn't look like this, I may not even notice all the other beautiful things that are being presented for how it's supposed to look for me.
That's true.
Right.
Okay.
Leave all expectations at the door.
Okay.
Best thing you can do, wake up and say, what can today look like for me? Not what will today look like for me. What can today look like for me? I know I have to do X, Y, and Z. That's already set. Cool. But in between that, what can life look like for me? And how can life happen for me?
Shift in the word.
Start speaking to yourself like that, because everything is mental. Start speaking to yourself in a different language, because language is magic. Magic is potion to the body and the mind. So when people talk about you being magical, you're magical because you understand how to use your words to create magic in your life and other people's lives. Oh, you look so great today. I love your shirt. That's magic. Oh, I love your smile.
My shirt is magic.
It is magic, right? It's literally your name talking about your mindset and your voice. That's what it is. It's your ability to use your throat chakra to create your voice in the world and show how you think. That's what Mander's mindset is.
You're exactly right.
She's like, yeah, that's exactly what I said to somebody yesterday. That's hilarious. Yeah, I told him that yesterday. We were talking. I was like, yep, that's exactly what this shirt means. I actually have it written on the back. If I turn around, you'll see it.
It says shift your mindset, shift your life.
Exactly, right? But like we all have these things and these symbols that we can use, right? Your tattoos, they're all symbolic. My tattoos are all symbolic. They all represent a part of who I am, but it's also the magic that's within me, right? So when you understand this and you understand how to program and reprogram your mind to be able to will what you want into the world, life becomes fun. Life doesn't become stressful. Life should not be stressful. Like life should be fun. You should be sitting here like, today's Tuesday. Damn, what can I do today? Okay, I'm gonna do this. Oh no, I'm gonna move this over here. Okay, cool, boom. Okay, yep.
What are you doing with your hands?
That's me excited. It's Tuesday, right? Warming up, I'm ready to go, right? So that's how fun life could be. Life can be really, really
You're
fun if you let go
adorable.
to what you think it's supposed to be. So I think I've said everything that I can possibly say. And
Bret,
I love you so much for putting this together.
I have more questions for you.
It's 3 hours and 20 minutes in. I told you I'm giving you 90 and you said ask for 2 and we're an hour and a half over that. I can't do any more. For real.
Bret.
You better wrap it up. You got 3 minutes. I'll give you the 2024 or 3024.
Bro.
Yep.
Whoa. Hold the phone.
We're not doing
this is Mander's mindset. This ain't Bret's mindset.
Listen, Bret. I just told you I'm a manifester. I do
you
magic.
You ain't a manifester or nothing.
325. 325.
Just shut up. This is Mander's mindset.
You gotta get it in.
Yo.
I'm hitting in 325. You think I'm playing? Let's go.
I'm gonna get on a fucking plane and be fighting you.
No, you're not, because you're trying to go to Bali. You ain't getting on nothing.
Fuck off. I'll get on a plane to Guatemala first. I'll go to Guatemala, then Bali.
3 minutes and counting.
Yo.
Yeah, let's go.
So, before we fully wrap up and before you hang fucking up on me, I know you have been a fan of Batman. I think it's your favorite movie or one of them.
Nope, I haven't. I hate Batman.
That is not true.
It's a good movie, yeah. My new favorite movie is Dune 2.
Yo, apparently my research on you,
Batman, the Dark Knight Rising is one of my favorite movies, yes.
One of, okay. Is there a reason for that?
The Dark Knight Rising?
A reason it's one of your favorites?
Yeah, I watched it when I was going through, when I told you I got let go from the Patriots and I ended up playing in the UFL. I watched it during that year and I resonated so much with Batman because that was the movie where he gets thrown into this pit in the Middle East by the villain Bane, who's probably one of the best villains. I would say top 5 villains ever in all movie history. And Batman just gets back out there with no passion, no purpose, no real meaning behind why he's doing it, except for just getting back out there. And he gets his fucking ass whooped by a dude who was fighting for a cause, something much bigger than himself. And he threw Batman in this pit, and only one other person made it out of this pit. And so Batman is like trying to kill himself to jump out of this pit. And finally he does. And that journey from coming out of that pit to stepping back into Gotham City is the journey that was required to rebuild him into the Batman that he needed to be able to defeat Bane. And it was very symbolic to me as I was going through that NFL part, because jumping out of the NFL, I felt broken and, I had to rebuild myself. And then I had to climb back out of that hole to get back into the NFL when I signed with the Jets. So that's why that movie was so symbolic to me. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. And was that your first time seeing it when you were
in 2000? I think it came out that year. So I think I went to the movies and saw it. Yeah.
Okay. That's cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was a great time.
Now I have a random question.
Sure.
Is the NFL scripted? Like, will you can't
Hands
say.
off. Hands off. I couldn't tell you. Because I only know what I know, and I don't know if anybody else is controlling the shit. You know what I mean? I don't know what goes on with other people. I just know what goes on with me.
No, that's fair.
It's scripted for me now. Were there some other people pulling strings? I don't know.
No, I gotcha.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Yep.
How would you say, or would you say, your mindset has changed from when you were an NFL player to now?
I think the change is the growth and understanding of life and understanding how to live a better life. And when I say better, I just mean more meaningful, more joyous, more loving, more caring, more selfless. So I think that's probably the biggest shift is just understanding those things through the experiences that I've been through that we talked about.
Yeah, no, I gotcha. Okay. So have you heard of a man named Jay Shetty?
Yep.
So he has a podcast called On Purpose, and he ends it with 2 segments, and I end my podcast with those 2 segments as well. Okay? Are you ready for them?
Sure.
You're not going to hang up on me?
Maybe. I'm kidding.
You think I won't get on a fucking plane and come to Guatemala? I will. I have done crazier things before.
I believe it.
Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I believe it.
Segment 1 is called The Many Sides to Us. And there's 5 questions and they have to be answered in 1 word. Okay?
Got it.
What is 1 word someone who was meeting you for the first time would use to describe you as?
Anomaly.
What does that mean?
Anomaly?
Yeah.
You said 1 word. I can't say more than 1 word. Anomaly.
You can't tell me what it means?
You said it was 1 word. Breaking the rules.
They're my rules. Answer the question. What does anomaly mean?
Once in a lifetime.
Okay.
Once in a lifetime occurrence.
For fuck's sake, this man. Number 2. What is 1 word that someone who knows you extremely well would use to describe you as?
Silly.
Number 3. What is 1 word you'd use to describe yourself?
Relentless.
What is 1 word that if someone didn't like you or agree with your mindset would use to describe you?
That's tough. Unsure. I don't know. That was the word unsure. Sorry.
If they didn't like you or agree with your mindset, they would call you unsure.
Yeah, they'd be like, unsure. I don't know if I like this guy or not.
What?
Yeah, they'd be unsure. Like, I'm unsure. I don't know if I like Brett or not.
So the word they would use to describe you is unsure?
Yeah, unsure of themselves because everybody likes me. Only people that don't like me don't like themselves.
Okay. On that note, number 5, what is 1 word that you're embodying right now?
Everything.
Second segment is the final 5. Now this can be answered in a sentence, not just a word.
Thank you. I appreciate you clarifying the rules. Thank you.
What is the best advice you've heard or received?
There's no situation in life that you go through that can't be a greater understanding for yourself to improve.
Wow, I like that. Okay. Number 2, what is the worst advice you've heard or received?
Ask a girl about her body count on the first date. Yeah.
You were given that advice?
I heard it on a social media post on this. I forget the guy's name, but he's got a bunch of followers. And I followed him because I was listening to a few of his videos and I was like, oh, I really like what this guy's saying. You know, I support him, you know, I need more support. And, you know, he was saying like, hey, you should get to the nitty gritty. You should ask, you know, how many kids they want. What do they want to get married? Where do they want to live? You know, what do they want in their career? And, you know, what is their body count? I was like, what? It's like, nah, bro.
Okay.
Yeah. I was like, nah, bro, that's not happening.
Okay. Number 3, what is something that you used to value that you no longer value?
Purchases, things, you know, expensive items. Like I used to value materials. I don't value those things anymore.
Number 4, if you could describe what you would want your legacy to be as if someone were reading it, what would you want it to say?
Bret Lockett was a truth seeker who completely shifted the way people love and raised the entire vibration of the world before he left.
Wow. Okay. If you could create one law in the world that everyone had to follow, what would it be and why?
Give 5 hugs to people every day, and the hugs have to be for at least 15 seconds. Because everybody needs to know that they're loved and everybody needs to know what it feels like to be loved.
Brett, that's adorable.
That's a great rule. I'm going to implement that here.
That's adorable. I love that. Okay. Now, I do have one more question for you before you hang up on me.
Sure.
But can you share with us the resources that you utilize consistently to be successful?
Absolutely not.
This is not a question that I'm asking. Share the fucking resources. This is not a yes or no. This is a Brett. Share with us the resources.
The biggest resource that I think anybody can utilize to change their life is Gene Keys. 2 resources that I'll give you that'll change your life if you use them, right? Because I can give you things, but if you don't use them, your life's not going to change. Okay. 2 things: Gene Keys, and the second thing is breath work. If you said, I'm going to do breath work every day for 30 days, and you said, I'm going to read the Gene Keys, I'm going to read my profile, and I'm going to read about my profile for the next 30 days. If you do those 2 things, I guarantee your life will change in an instant. Take you 1 month, your whole year will be changed.
Okay, then.
I have a lot of resources, but those 2 things will shift you at a very high level.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for speaking to me and taking the time. I really, really appreciate it. This has been long overdue, and I'm so grateful to have had you on Manda's Mindset.
Amanda, thank you so much for having me. I know we've been trying to get this done for a long time, so it's been a joy to be here with you and be in spirit with you, and I'm excited for the next part of your journey.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And thanks, guys.
Go ahead, sorry.
No, you're good. You're frozen on my screen, so I can't tell that you're speaking, but...
Okay, I'm black on my screen. I can't even see myself. And my screen froze. My screen froze for like a minute, maybe more while I was talking.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in to Mander's Mindset. And thank you so much, Brett, for taking the time to speak with me. I know we've been here for super long, so I super appreciate it. And where can everybody connect with you and find you?
All online. We live in a digital era. So thanks again for having me. And everybody can find me at my website, bretlockett.com. And you can go visit me on all my social profiles. Bret Lockett or Bret_Lockett on Instagram is probably the best place to find me.
Sounds good. And I will link that in the show notes for you guys to connect with Brett directly. And stay tuned for the next episode of Mander's Mindset. Thanks, guys.
This is a long ass podcast, so I don't know who the fuck is going to get through all this shit.
Hey, guys. Mander's here. I hope you enjoyed that meaningful conversation that I had with Brett. And now, hopefully, you have heard part 1 and part 2 of my conversation with Brett. That was a really great conversation, and I really enjoyed it. And now I want to reiterate something that Brett and I talked about, and Brett really emphasized. But I want to make sure you guys take some time to really think about these questions. And now, regardless of how old you are, your age, race, gender, ethnicity, any of the above, where you live in the world, I highly encourage you to reflect on these questions. Because, and now I talk about this all the time, we're all going to die one day. And not to get morbid, but none of us are making it out of this thing called life living forever. That being said, I encourage you to really think about how you want to live life. And here's some questions that Brett asked in the podcast episode that I want y'all to reflect on. I encourage you to grab a pen and a paper because I really think you should write these questions down and come back to them. The first question is, what would make my life meaningful to me? What would make me look back on my life when I'm much older or on my deathbed and shed a tear because my life was so meaningful and because I'm so grateful for the memories I made and the experiences I had, the friendships that lasted for 40, 50, 60 years. I encourage you to really sit with yourself and get quiet and really think about when you are older, what will make you say, wow, my life was so meaningful and I am so grateful for all of these things. That could be life experiences, and maybe it's traveling the world. Maybe it's finding love and having a family. Maybe it's building your own business and leveling it up. Whatever it may be, only you know that. And there's going to be a day when we all leave this earth. So I encourage you to really think about when you're 70 years old, and even you're not on your deathbed yet, but you're much older, and you know it's not your deathbed, but even at that age, what would make you go, wow, and shed that tear and be like, damn, thank you. I'm grateful that this was my life. What is the legacy that you want to leave on the world? What impact do you want to have? Nobody else can make that decision for you. And nobody else should make that decision for you. But those of you who are connected with me on social media, I have asked prior to recording the episode with Bret if any of y'all had questions for Bret. Unfortunately, we were not able to get to the questions because Bret and I talked for 3 hours and 40 minutes, and the both of us were beat at almost 4 hours of talking. So Bret so generously offered that he is going to answer the first 10 questions that any of you submit to me. You can submit your question to me either via Instagram direct message or my email address. Both are linked in the show notes. If it's an email with the subject line Bret Lockett question, and you can ask a question for $9.99 and get your question answered no more than 150 words, and you will get a personalized video from former NFL player Bret Lockett, who will personally answer any question you have. You will also get first exclusive access to Bret's most valuable mentorship program for less than the price of a cup of coffee per day. And now, guys, this is only for Mando's Mindset folks, and this offer expires May 5th, 2024. So if you want to ask Bret Lockett a question, if you have a question about his life, his experiences in the NFL, you have a personal relationship question, Gene Keys question, send me a message. I will get your message sent to Bret, and you will get a personalized video sent to you. It will be a minute-long video, but answering your question and giving you some wisdom. And as always, thanks, guys, for tuning in to an episode of Mando's Mindset. I really appreciate it. And if you guys have listened to me this far, if you haven't left me a 5-star rating, I would really appreciate it. If you're enjoying what I'm having to say, the guests, what they have to say. Also, if you listen on Apple Podcasts, leave me a review on there. I'd really appreciate it. And it would also help me get Mando's Mindset out there to more people, which is honestly what I'm looking to do. So, him and I would really appreciate it if you share this on social media or shared it with someone you think would benefit from hearing some of what Bret had to share. He is full of wisdom, and I am fortunate to spend a lot of Wisdom Wednesdays with this man virtually. So, well, that being said, I hope you all enjoyed Bret's wonderful wisdom, and stay tuned for the next episode of Mando's Mindset. Thanks, guys.